Hello, everyone, and welcome to Netreo's user group get-together, NUGGET. And today we have with us Bryan Hope, Director of Collaboration and Communication at VMware. Thank you for having me in this very special studio here at VMware.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
So, Bryan, what does VMware do?
So VMware is a software company that makes virtualization and cloud infrastructure software. And we also have product lines in desktop security, endpoint management, and networking.
Got it. So what do you do at VMware?
Yeah, so at VMware, I lead our unified communication and collaboration team. I've been here for about 12 years, originally from Vancouver, Canada, and now living in the Bay Area. And our team's mission is to enable our colleagues to do their best work with frictionless and delightful products, experiences, and work practices. And what that's meant for the last few years was helping VMware transition from being 80% in-office based to 95% remote or hybrid.
Wow, that's really leading edge. So what are, from your vantage point, some of the leading trends in IT then to support remote work?
Yeah, so the leading trends that I'm seeing in IT that are probably recognizable to people attending is that we're being asked to reduce or control our spending while also enabling a remote and hybrid workforce to be productive. And what this really means for us is that we're looking to reduce the number of applications in our ecosystem, reduce context switching between the different applications, and then to make deeper use of the applications that are remaining. We also have to really intentionally build and buy tools and products that work well over a hybrid situation, whether someone is in the office, remote, or on the go.
Got it. So how does that influence your strategy for collaboration then?
Yeah, so in 2020, VMware switched to being from 80% in office to 95% remote. And we have a policy that allows colleagues to choose where they want to work from. So our strategy evolved to focus on offering single global platforms that are used ubiquitously across VMware so that we can be connected together as one company, as one VMware. We also focus on having deeper integration between the platforms so the work flows between the platforms more effortlessly. And lastly, we really focus on choosing applications that are consumer grade. We want them to be easy to use with no training required.
So thinking of the apps and thinking of the people using the apps, what then does productivity mean to VMware? How do you measure it, if at all?
Yeah, and it's a question that doesn't have a single answer, so I'll answer definitely from my perspective. Productivity to me means enabling people to do their best work, regardless of where they are, and regardless of what type of device that they're currently working on. And we have found the best way to measure productivity from my point of view is actually to ask our colleagues how we're doing. So we have a twice yearly survey that we call the Technology Experience Survey, and that's where colleagues can rank every one of our services. They can provide free-form written feedback in the survey. And we also ask them some questions that really summarize how well are we doing across the portfolio. So we ask them things like to say yes or no. I have all the tools and services I need to stay connected to my colleagues and productive no matter where I am. And when we ask those questions, what we're hearing from our colleagues is usually between 94 and 96% of colleagues are saying yes. And that's how I measure whether I'm meeting their needs.
That's amazing. So what is then the remote work experience? And what do you mean by it and how do you enable it?
Yeah, so for me, when I think about remote experience or hybrid experience, I think about equity. It means achieving equity. So making sure that remote colleagues feel fully engaged, fully included, and fully productive when working alongside colleagues who may not be in the same physical location of them. And to do this, we actually rely really heavily on our own products. So Workspace ONE and Carbon Black really allow colleagues to access any application from any device, no matter where they are, fully secured. And then lastly, as I kind of mentioned earlier, we really intentionally choose collaboration and communication tools that work well at the office, at home, and on the go, even over a relatively poor internet connection.
That's amazing and makes a lot of sense. So what led you to evaluate Netreo?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago now, if I go back, VMware has about 47,000 employees. And we serve those colleagues with a hybrid email infrastructure. So we have all of our colleague email inboxes in the cloud, And then we have an on-prem infrastructure of relays and servers to help with application-based email that needs to go in a hybrid model between our on-premise services and the cloud. And this is critical infrastructure for us, so it has to be extremely high reliability. And we were looking for something that would work with this hybrid approach, something that wouldn't be overkill for what our needs were, and also something that would be compatible with our own products and services that we're using in our ecosystem.
Got it. So how are you using Netreo then?
Yeah, so today we're using Netreo M365 Insights to monitor and alert on our hybrid email infrastructure. And then we use that in combination with VMware Aria, which helps us monitor the virtual machines that the infrastructure is running on top of.
Love it. Love the synergy between the two tools. So how does Netreo help you then in terms of the value proposition that it delivers?
Yeah, so we have realized a lot of benefits from working with Netreo and combining that with our solutions. So we find it's very simple and easy to use. It was very quick to deploy, so our time to value was very short. And again, it was really focused on what we needed without being more than what we needed in this case, right? From a cost perspective, we've now had a lot of time and experience with it, and we found that we have reduced our costs, when you think about licensing costs and person-hour costs, by over 75%. So a really significant reduction for us, while still maintaining almost flawless reliability. I almost don't want to say that, because I know at some point the universe will try and correct me, right? And lastly, just to understand the scope and scale of this. So again, we have 47,000 or so colleagues. We have several on-prem email exchange servers. We have Linux email relay servers all running in this portfolio. We have tens of thousands of applications accessing this infrastructure, sending over 350 million emails a year. And so we've been able to secure and monitor and alert on that infrastructure very successfully.
That's amazing.
Help colleagues produce their highest quality work product. How can it make them do their jobs better, right? But there's a lot of things for us to navigate with AI too. We have to do AI the right way, which means understanding how data is used and stored, understanding privacy and retention policies, understanding if there's third-party services involved in an AI feature or toolkit. So there's a lot for us to think through when it comes to AI.
Got it. So it sounds like you've embarked on some of this journey. So what's working well and what's not working well so far?
Yeah, the not working well, what I find is that when we go to evaluate an AI feature or capability, there's some pretty standard questions that we're trying to answer. And it would be really helpful to me if the vendors, when they came ready to talk to us about their AI features and capabilities, they would also come ready with these privacy answers in hand. I do feel like there's a little bit too much still of us having to rediscover these answers with each vendor, and I'd really love to see it more standardized and more upfront from them. On the positive side, we are seeing AI come into the ecosystem already, most often through our existing trusted vendors. So we have trusted vendors that we work with today. They're adding AI capabilities, and that's something that trust is there. I can sort of trust what they're doing with the AI. And we still verify, but there's a little bit of trust there. So we're seeing AI features come in. And again, these are features that are not trying to replace jobs or remove jobs, but they're just helping our colleagues do the highest quality work product possible.
That's great. Well, I'm really glad to be part of this cutting edge evolution that VMware is going through in terms of collaboration and communication with 47,000 employees. So Bryan, what advice would you give to someone rolling out a collaboration and communication strategy today?
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think it's really important given how work is changing, right? So I would start always with, can you connect it back to a company objective or a company priority, something that's really above us, right? And bringing it to serve that bigger picture mission. Then I'd spend a lot of times really going out and understanding the true needs of the colleagues and the company, because it's going to differ based on your company, your industry, your vertical, etc. And then look at all your options, right? And don't be afraid to model out different options and sort of ask, what if we went this way? What if we went that way? There's often multiple solutions that can meet the need or meet the parts of your strategy. So don't limit yourself to thinking there's only ever one right answer, right? Then I think a big part of a strategy is then socializing that strategy, really taking that out to people, taking that to your company leaders, taking that to people who are reputable and recognized within the company as informal leaders, and asking them to chime in on the strategy and really checking that you're getting it right. And then last couple things I would say is, number one, don't be afraid to make tough decisions while you're doing this, because there will be lots of opinions. There will be lots of people chiming in with what they think is the right thing to do, and you have to be willing to abstract your own personal desires and wants and do what you really think is right for the company. And then lastly, as we talked about earlier, less is really more. We're trying to do more things with fewer tools nowadays. So an overly complex strategy and having lots of different options in the portfolio was something maybe we did in the past, but now we're really trying to get down to having fewer things in the portfolio that are easier to use and require, almost no training for colleagues to be successful.
That's amazing. What I'm also hearing is that there's a lot to work through with a number of different individuals. So, how do you manage that change?
Yeah, I think first, when managing change is almost, you've got a strategy, but go test your theory, right? So make sure you're doing a POC, make sure you're involving people who can sort of try and poke holes in your strategy and the choices you're making to really see if it's correct. You want to make sure you're involving people who have a broad representation across the company. So not just from IT, not just from executive leadership, but from the business units that might actually be using this portfolio going forward. And as you start to roll it out, I think another really key thing for me is be honest. It's not always a message of how fantastic something is or that you've chosen the absolute best thing that's possible. For example, sometimes it's more important that you made a decision rather than you focused on trying to get the very best tool. So just be honest about what you're choosing, what the benefits are, and really don't oversell it and come off as being inauthentic, right? And then lastly, I would say, meet people where they are. The way that we roll things out, the way that we do training, enablement, and communications is really changing. And you have to figure out how your people want to receive those things from you. And I'll give an example of something we just recently did. So we recently rolled out Zoom Phone as our enterprise telephony solution. And there's a lot of change going on right now at VMware. And we didn't really feel like we had permission to force another change on our colleagues, but we still wanted to give them the option. So we actually launched what we call an open enrollment process, where we're not sending them emails, we're not putting them through mandatory training. We're actually just sending them an automated DM in Slack. And it asks them, hey, Zoom Phone is available. Do you want to make the change now, or do you want to defer it for a couple weeks? And they click a button. If they click yes, the change happens in the background, and we send them another DM with all their enablement materials linked right there. And if they click no, we go away for a couple weeks, and we'll come back and remind them of the option a couple weeks later. But it really was us approaching them through a medium that we hadn't used before and giving them the choice. And we had over 9,000 people opt in at VMware within the first couple of weeks from sending one single direct message.
That's amazing. It looks like, with the rise of remote work and lots of different ways of working, there's a lot of innovation that's going on in your space that's sort of uncharted in terms of concepts and ideas. This is so exciting. How do people get started? How did you get started in this space?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think my path was intentional, but it served me well. So I actually And that was my path. I think it served me very well, but I do think really strongly that IT people need to be leveraging a customer success mindset going forward. I don't think we'll ever get away from that.
I love it. So you're talking about the employee experience and how to enhance that constantly. That's fantastic. So I love your references to the experience, the customer experience, and the employee experience. There's so much of soft skills and hard skills involved in this. What sort of advice would you give to someone interested in embarking on this communication and collaboration path in their career?
Yeah, I have a few ideas. So first, I think I would say get really curious. Spend a lot of time talking to the people that you're trying to serve all across the business units and build those relationships and get to know them and their needs. IT can no longer really be, inward focused. We have to know the people that we're serving. The second thing I would say is build relationships across the industry. So don't only build relationships internally, but build relationships with your vendor partners and do that across all the different industries, even again between different competitors. Some companies that you might be using today, some companies that you might be using in the future. So build those external relationships. And then lastly, feel empowered to really be building and defining the future. So as someone in IT, I'm not just buying things off the shelf. I'm working with those vendor partners to help them establish their roadmaps, to understand what we customers need in their roadmaps. So feel really empowered to work with those vendors and know that you're part of defining that future. You're not just a customer buying off the shelf.
That's amazing. We definitely have enjoyed the partnership we've had with you, Bryan, through this entire journey as well. And we feel empowered by this session, as I hope you all too, listening in on Bryan's talk around collaboration and communication. Thank you so much for sharing your insights at Nugget today, Bryan.
Thank you.